I'm sitting here with Drew Brophy, and tomorrow we're going to induct him into the East Coast Surfing Hall of Fame. And I know he's really stoked about that, but I'm going to let him tell a few stories. But if you go back in time, he's a true East Coaster. He's from Myrtle Beach.
Yeah.
Then he moved to Hawaii because he wanted to tackle pipeline and started drawing over there, which ultimately led to him getting to California and teaming up with Matt Biolas and the Lost. You pretty much invented pins on surfboards, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there was a couple guys doing it. I discovered it. It was actually here at Surf Expo. It was Jack Myers
Oh, I remember
was
Jack.
doing pin lines because he was a board painter. But then he decided to paint a board here at the show. And I think that was probably the first person ever to paint on a board. And then,
Well, he did those, not painting, but illustrations for the old OP boards, remember?
yeah, no, he did the dolphin. So really fantastic painter. And so I was a young kid in South Carolina. And I went back and I like to paint my own surfboards. And I really didn't have any aspirations other than to try to make my boards look cooler. And eventually I was working for Kelly Richards with Perfection Surfboards, painting their surfboards. There again, I was just trying to fit in. I just wanted to be good at something and contribute any way to keep me surfing, just like anybody else.
Well, talk about keep you surfing. Then what motivated you to head to pipeline? Because I've seen some pretty good photos of you charging.
Well, on the East Coast, it was really hard to make money painting boards. So I was designing T-shirts. I was doing as much as I could, but at the end of the day, I couldn't make enough money. And the waves, they're great when you're a little kid, but when you get older and you've traveled, you want better and better waves. And I just thought everybody dreamed of surfing pipeline. And I had an opportunity to go to Hawaii last minute. I heard about a job and I called and the guy said, look, we'll give you a shot at the job. And I was like, that's great. I said, let me save some money. I'll be out there in about a month. And he says, you don't understand. We need somebody by the end of the week. And I can remember going into my father's office and telling him, like, I just got offered a job in Hawaii. And my dad didn't even look up. And I said, no, Dad, I got a job offer. And I knew this was a crossroads in my life. And I just said to my dad, I said, Dad, if I don't do this, nothing ever great's going to happen for me. Like I knew that was my window, that was my shot. My dad walked across the street to a travel agency and bought me a one-way ticket to Hawaii. And that was the last time I lived in South Carolina.
That's an awesome story, mate.
Yeah. And I didn't know them, who they were. I got picked up at the airport. They waited for the last person at the baggage claim, so they knew it was me. They had sent a guy, Todd Suss, to pick me up. And the factory was Pro Glass, Bill Barnfield's factory.
I remember that.
In Haleiwa. Yeah. And so that night, I was painting surfboards for all the best surfers and shapers in the world. And that next morning, I surfed pipeline.
And what did that feel like?
Well, I'd spent the summer in Puerto Escondido
tuning in,
thinking that I was preparing for pipeline. But I can remember paddling out at pipeline and it was like, oh my gosh, this is so much easier than Puerto Escondido. And I had a few friends from, surfing in the NSSA and the ESA and the US Championships. And they were all really stoked to see me. Guys like Strider Wazalewski and, Shane Beshin and things like that. So, I felt like I fit right in. It just was a long road for me to get there.
So how long did you end up staying on the North Shore before you got to California?
I lived on the North Shore probably like 5 years. And I would go surfing in Puerto every summer through the summer and then go back to Hawaii. And interesting enough, I moved to California because of pipeline also. That winter in 1995, I was surfing pipeline and I like to sit deep and I was, getting a chip shot in, and I was the whole pack was below me, and they were all kind of caught. And I hesitated just for a second, and it caught my tail and spun me, and ended up getting pitched in the lip and into the shallow spot. And I hit this whole side of my body, and got injured really bad. Cracked my eye socket, my cheekbone, my nose, my dislocated my jaw, my shoulder, knocked me out, and I lost my job because I couldn't lift my arm, and I couldn't eat either. I had to suck soup through straw. So it took a couple months, but by a couple months I was out of savings, and work dries up in the spring. And a friend of mine, Rob McCarty, one of the Vissla co-founders, who's also from South Carolina. We've known each other since we were kids. He says, well, I'm in California. Why don't you come here and work for the summer? So I went to California, and Strider was one of my friends. Strider said, well, look up my friend Matt. He's a shaper over there. And so I found myself in California, and immediately I got a job at Surf Glass, which was Ron House's company that made all the Hobie and Stewart boards.
And he also did some lightning bolt work too with Jerry.
Yeah. And so now I was friends with Jerry. So I just fell into this whole other group of people. And then I was riding my bike. I didn't really have any other friends than Rob. And it turns out I was riding my bike past Matt Biolis' shaping room every day. And then finally I stopped in there and I said, I'm a friend of Strider's. And, I was doing the paint pens in South Carolina and in Hawaii. But it didn't look the way a surfboard was supposed to look. So nobody wanted me to do it on the stock boards going to shops.
Right.
And I was doing them on used boards like Pipe Guys on the beach at Pipeline. And nobody wanted to be caught dead on last year's board. So I'd sand off their old airbrush and then paint it up so it looked like a new board. And Matt was the only other person that I'd ever seen paint boards. And Matt was a good artist and painter, but he'd rather shape. So I said, this is great. I can paint better than you can, and you want to shape anyway. And he kind of took that as a challenge. So he had me paint something right there. And I painted this killer dragon holding a skull. And he was like, wow, that's pretty good. Can you come back tomorrow? And so Matt and I became instant friends. And everything changed from that moment.
That put you permanently in California.
Yeah, and I met my wife.
That's what I was going to ask.
Too.
Yeah, I was going to ask, when did the missus come along?
But really it was, between Surf Glass and working with Matt at Lost, I was making more money than I'd ever made in my life. Life was easier. It's hard on the North Shore. It's hot and cold. The East Coast, I'd be lucky to get 10 boards a week. You can't live off of that. So in California, it was great because everything was there. All the magazines were there. The waves were great. And
the partnership with Matt must have been Matt's made in heaven at that time.
Matt was like the first person that really believed in me and just let me go. And before that, you needed to get past all the gatekeepers. And the gatekeepers were scared. They were like, oh, that's a cool board, but that's too gnarly. Matt just said the gnarlier the better. And we'd sit there and listen to crazy music.
That's kind of the Lost Mayhem theory, right?
Yeah, we just sent it out and the public decided. So once the public saw the boards, they loved it. And they couldn't get enough of it. And we'd show up here at Surf Expo and I would just paint everything. And every board was different. And that had never been done before. And then Matt and I started traveling around the world, setting the licensees up. So, him and I together, painted all over the world, shaped and painted. And so as we went, we kind of took over that licensing deal that was going on. And at the time, Town and Country was like the biggest thing international. It seemed like we were replacing them everywhere we went. And that's the way you had to do it before the internet. You had to show up and blow up.
Right.
You went surfing with them, you partied all night with them, but you had to work.
Well, that's how we were talking about the old trade show days, remember?
Yeah. And so the thing that Matt and I had in common was a great work ethic. we just outworked everybody. We would surf, we would party, but we would then go still work and pull it off everywhere we went. And it was poor, but it was also real, you know. It was like, you know, you go get tubed with the guys and you party with the guys and you paint with the guys. It's like, you know, it doesn't get
Yeah.
any more real than that.
So at what point did you branch out on your own after that relationship must have been for quite a long time?
Yeah. What had happened is, you know, the brand just grew and grew, and I started designing clothes and things like that. And at some point, it moved to Irvine, and honestly, I didn't want to drive there. And I like
That was with the licensee up in Irvine, right?
Yeah. And so at that time, my son was about to be born. I was married, and I was tired of traveling, and I just wanted to scale back. And the art started to change. When you're in your 20s and you're fighting through life, it's like more angry and rough and stuff like that. But I just reached this place in my life where I was just really enjoying going on just surf trips with my family. And so I decided that's what I wanted to do. And the art changed too. I started doing big paintings and selling art prints. And
so when did you open that studio that's in San Clemente?
I had a version of that studio since probably 2001. I was still working with Matt and Joel Cooper and everybody, Mike Riola. So it was like a transition that we kind of phased out. And I mean, we never totally phased out. I mean, we still always do stuff together.
Hey, and thank God you had the missus to organize all that stuff
Yeah,
for
I
you,
mean,
mate.
my wife Maria, you know, I finally got her to quit her job, and she focused on just our little business. And we just wanted to be an art business, and we continued to travel and, you know, do stuff around the world, but as a family. And my goal was like to introduce art and painting surfboards to everybody.
Well, I really appreciate what you're doing, where you encourage young kids to come to your studio and show them how to use paint pens and all that stuff. That to me is really, really important. Moving it on.
Yeah, it's important. You know, my thought always was that like every surf shop should employ a local artist that could paint the boards in the shop.
That's a great idea.
Doing customs, and that's what we did. Matt and I went to every shop in the world, and we would go hang out with them and paint. And I'd always leave my pens with a local kid, say, "Look, you could do this too. Help this kid get to where he's going." And for the most part, that's exactly what happened on a global scale. So, you know, that idea allowed so many young people to discover that they had art skills, make some money, and maybe they didn't continue to paint surfboards, but it was a launch pad for them into their own art career, or at least make them feel included into the whole scope of things. And that's what this is. You know, not everybody's going to be a pro surfer. You know, you're going to be, you know, you could be a writer, you're a photographer, an artist, a salesperson, you know, all these different things, but you still get to live the lifestyle.
That's right.
And I think that's the message that we need to put out to all these people, especially the kids, because, you know, they can have the same lifestyle that you and I have lived in whatever way possible.
So I was really intrigued by that story you told about the wipeout of pipeline. I really didn't ever know that. Yeah. So you went through another one of those with COVID.
Yeah.
Like
so the wipeout. Yeah.
Was the COVID worse than the wipeout of pipeline?
Yeah, it doesn't get much worse than that. It's just a great.
You recording?
Yeah. Yeah, but that was the craziest thing, and kind of as looking at it through the lens of what happened to me at Pipeline. Everything in life happens for a reason. If I wouldn't have gotten that accident in Pipeline, it would have never sent me to California to meet Matt and meet my wife, and you know, this trajectory of life. So you've got to look at every negative as kind of launching you into something else. So the COVID thing, you know, I was one of the unfortunate people to catch it, and it's a long story, but you know, I'm one of the people who was told they were going to die, and I was in a coma for 28 days.
Oh yeah, we were following it, mate. Don't worry.
you know, one of the reasons I lived was because I had built a life worth living for. I had been kind to people and lived a life to where people cared about me. And so I could feel those prayers on the other side. And I just want people to know that all your thoughts matter. Everything that you do matters. You want to build a life worth living for, because when that moment comes, it's coming for all of us. When you need it, um, you want to feel that love and peace that I felt in that coma that allowed me to come back. And there's just nothing to worry about whether you come back or not. It is a gift to be here. And I think that just like the pipeline event, it was something that was steering me in a different direction. And yeah, so here I am. I'm ready.
So, what do you think about being inducted into the East Coast Surfing Hall of Fame?
It's humbling. It's humbling. I never really set out to be anything but happy, doing the things that I love and just try to do them the best I can. So I got stuck with surfing and art. That's a hard thing to work with. In a poker game, that's like a pair of twos. But but I did my best, and it feels good to be recognized by your peers and other people that surf, that you've done something that they noticed and it was worthwhile. And I'm standing on the shoulders of so many people, other surfers, surf shop owners, and artists, and people that helped me get here. And I'm just so grateful.
Unreal, mate. We look forward to putting him into the East Coast Surfing Hall of Fame here at Surf Expo. It's the 50th anniversary of Surf Expo, 30th anniversary East Coast Surfing Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
There's a lot of names on that list these days.
It's 30 years of being here. So I'm celebrating my 30th year here.
Well, hopefully we'll see all of you there this Thursday night at Surf Expo.
Right on. Life is good.